All right, so today what we're going to talk about is 10-5, solving systems by multiplication. And this is an addition to your elimination stuff. What happens in elimination, what we can do is we can multiply the equations by some number. So our variables will fall out. And if you remember from the previous lesson, we had 3x, blah, 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 and a 3x. And what Mr. Johnson did was he multiplied every single thing by a negative. Okay, same process, because I wanted my x's to cancel out when I added those two equations together. Same process here. If I got a 2x and I got a 3x, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to multiply this by 3x, or actually multiply by 3 to give me 6x, and I'm going to have to multiply this by a negative 2, so then I get a negative 6x, and so these will cancel out. So that's what we're going to look at today. Is you can multiply by a number, you just have to make sure, just like this negative 1, you do it to every single thing. You do it to the x, you do it to the y, you do it to your solution. So let's go ahead and take a look at example 1 here. This says solve the system. 3x minus 4y equals 7. And the bottom one says 6x minus 5y is equal to 20. As you notice, if I were to add these together, 3x and 6x would give me 9x. A negative 4y and a negative 5y would give me a negative 9y. So neither one of these would divide out. Now, it doesn't matter if you decide to get rid of your x's or your y's, it's still going to work the same way. So what I'm going to do in this case is I think I'm going to get rid of my y's just to show you that we can use our y's to get rid of them. So I got a negative 4 and a negative 5. What will a negative 4 and a negative 5 will go into? Well, they will go into 20, correct? So I need one of these to become a positive 20. I need one of these to become a negative 20. I'm going to make this a positive 20 up on top. So what times a negative 4 gives me a positive 20? You should say a negative 5. So I'm going to multiply my top by a negative 5. Now, like I said, I got to do it to every single thing. So 3x times a negative 5 is a negative 15x. A negative 5 times a negative 4y is a positive 20y. And 7 times a negative 5 is a negative 35. You have to be careful with your signs. Going to the bottom here, I need to make this a negative 20. Well, I already have a negative, so I just need to multiply that by 4, because 4 times a negative 5 gives me a negative 20. Okay? So 4 times 6x gives me 24x. 4 times a negative 5y gives me a negative 20y, which is what we wanted. If you don't get out what you wanted, then you need to go back and figure out what you did wrong. 4 times 20 is 80. Okay? Now, this is just basic math. Remember, we're just adding these things together. So a negative 15x and a positive 24x. Signs are different, so you are going to subtract, right? And that's going to give you 9x. Remember, these are gone now because the signs are different. If I add them together, they're going to be gone. And 80 minus 35 is going to give me 45. Just doing our elimination, just like we did the other day. Now I know what x is, because if I divide by 9, X is going to give me 5. So I know what X is. I'm going to plug this into one of the original equations because I got to find Y. So I know X is 5. I got to find my other coordinate. So I'm going to use the top one just because they're smaller numbers. 3 times X is 5 minus 4Y equals 7. What is 3 times 5? Well, 3 times 5 is 15. So the inverse of adding 15 is subtracting 15. Gives me a negative 4y is equal to, and gives me 8, correct? Negative 8, because the sign is on the bigger number. I divide by a negative 4. And a negative 8 divided by a negative 4, negative divided by a negative is positive. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So the coordinate point where these two equations meet at is 5, 2. Let's move along. They gave us two equations up here, this system. 7x plus 3y is equal to 22.5, and 2x minus 12y is equal to 45. And then it went to 28x plus 12y is equal to 90, and 12x minus 12y is equal to 45. Notice the bottom one did not change, but the top one did. A says, explain what operation occurred to go from the first system to the second system. Like I said, our second ones did not change. But this went from 7 to 28, 3 to 12, and 22.5 to 90. Well, what times 7 gives you 28? 4 did. 3 times 4 give you 12? Yes. Does 22.5 times 4 give you 90? Yes. So A is, what did they do? Multiplied top by 4, a positive 4. B says finish solving the problem. Well, if you notice here, my 12s are going to cancel themselves out. So 28x plus 2x is 30x. And 90 plus 45 is 135, you all should be screaming. Now it looks like we're going to get a decimal here. 135 divided by 30 is going to give me 4.5. And decimals aren't the devil, people. It's fine. So I got my x. I need to go ahead and find my y. Now I'm going to put my x back up into my original equation. I'm going to put in that 2x one. So 2 times x is 4.5 minus 12y is equal to 45. 2 times 4.5 is 9, so the inverse of adding 9 is subtracting 9. So I get a negative 12y is equal to 45 minus 9 is 36. I divide by a negative 12. And my y gives me a negative 3. So the point where those two equations intersect at, 4.5 and a negative 3. Once you find out this elimination method and how it all works, it's a lot easier method compared to the substitution method. As we all know, a lot of people have their own preference. You need to know all these for your quiz or test. Example 2 says, solve the system a negative 3m plus 2n equals 6. And 4m plus 5n equals a negative 31. So, which do we want to get rid of? in this case, since I have one positive, one negative, I want to get rid of my m's. Okay, it will just be easier. So what will go into 3, or what will 3 and 4 go into? You all should say 12. So I got to multiply the top by 4, because 4 times a negative 3 is going to give me 12. And I need to multiply the bottom by a positive 3, because 3 times 4 gives me a positive 12. A positive 12 and a negative 12 up here is going to make my m's fall out. So we got to do it to every single thing. So 4 times the negative 3 is a negative 12m, plus 4 times 2n is 8n, and 6 times 4 is 24. Remember, you have to do it to every single thing. I don't know how many times I can say that to make an emphasis on it. You have to do it to every single thing, and some of you will make that mistake. 3 times 4m is 12m. 3 times 5n is 15n. And a negative 31 times 3 is a negative 93. So, as I said here, if you get here and neither one of your variables eliminated, you did something wrong. So, my negative 12 and my positive 12 are now gone. 8n plus 15n is 23n. And a negative 93 plus 24, signs are different, so we're going to add those together, or subtract those, is going to give me a negative 69. Divide by 23. And you all should be screaming, n equals a negative 3. So I found my n. Is that my x or y coordinate? Well, in this case, it's my y coordinate, because m comes before n in the alphabet. Okay? So I found n. I got to find my m. So I'm going to use the bottom because it all has, well, majority of it has addition in it. So 4 times m plus 5 times n, which is a negative 3, has to equal a negative 31. Well, 4m and a positive 5 times a negative 3 gives me a negative 15, equals a negative 31. The inverse of subtracting is adding 15. 4m is going to equal to a negative 16. If I divide by 4, m equals a negative 4. And that's where those two equations are going to intersect. That's all I have for you today. Please enjoy. Until next time, this is Mr. Johnson signing out.